total number of deaths is increasing today by 1. And so we are going now from 34 to 35. That kind of, for 4 consecutive days, we've gone without reporting any deaths. Today we're reporting 1. And so the one new death is a white, non-Hispanic male in his 70s with no known underlying health conditions who passed away on April the 12th, 2020. And this is the first time that we're reporting the death of someone with no known underlying health conditions. The city of Houston expresses, of course, our sincere condolences to his family, because we recognize when we discuss the public health crisis each day, we are talking about the health, lives, and death of someone's loved one. That is why we must work together to stop community spread of this virus by social distancing, social separation, washing our hands frequently, using hand sanitizer when you have it, wearing face coverings while out in the public. And of course, you know, this is a requirement starting this coming Monday. On that front, we have some good news to report about our efforts to get masks and face coverings directly into the hands of people who need them most. And I'm talking about vulnerable populations, the elderly, and those with underlying health conditions. You know, as of today, the Health Equity Response Team, and Shannon Buggs is here as the Director of Complete Communities and one of the leads on that task force, the Health Equity Response Team, better known as HER. They received their first really a shipment of 50,000 masks today, and that 50,000 is already gone, distributed in various means throughout the city. When we will be distributing well over 200,000 masks to people in the city of Houston. Again, for us, it's all about your health, so it's masks over citations. When we encounter someone, either HPD encounters someone or on the bus, instead of giving someone a citation, we'll give them a mask or encourage them to wear a mask. Each one of our at-large council members, for example, there are 5 of them, have already received an allotment of masks, about 1,000 each already. And then each one of our district council members have already received 2,000 each. And then in addition to that, several of them will be having mass distribution efforts starting tomorrow through next week. And in that sense, we'll be distributing, well over 50,000 additional masks. And so if someone certainly is interested in a mask, you can contact your council member, either your district council member or council member at large. We have put masks in their hands, and we'll be putting even more in that hand. That's one of the forms of distribution. In fact, City Council Member Tiffany Thomas of District F will hold a mask giveaway at Crump Stadium located in the A-Leaf Independent School District, and it will start tomorrow at 4 p.m. and will continue until the supply runs out. And she will be handing out a number of masks, about 4,000 to 5,000. And then District A, Councilmember Amy Pack, distribution will take place on Monday, April the 27th from 9 to 10 a.m. At various locations: Carverdale Community Center, at 9920 Puerto Rico Road, at Freed Park Community Center, and at White Oak Conference Center. That's all in District A, and that will take place on Monday between 9 and 10. Councilmember Evan Shabazz of District D will be having something at the Sunnyside Multi-Service Center on tomorrow, and then on Monday at Mount Hebron Baptist Church from starting at 11 o'clock. There will be a mass distribution center. District J, Councilmember Edward Pollock, a mass distribution will take place at the Plaza Americas Mall. That would be on Tuesday, starting at 10, that's 7500 Bel Air Boulevard, Tuesday, April 28th at 10 a.m. Councilmember Robert Gallegos of District I will have face mask distribution sites in his district starting tomorrow At first will be at Our Lady of the Sea at 1401 Fidelity, 9 till 11 tomorrow, April 25th, as well as at the Tejada Center, from 8 to 1 on Monday, April the 27th, and that's at 2950 Broadway, and then at the Community Family Center at 7524 Avenue E on Monday, April the 27th, starting at 9 o'clock. And all of this will be made available to you. In District K, Councilmember Martha Castek Tatum, Vice Mayor Pro Tem, her mass distribution will be at the Fountain of Life Center. That will be on Tuesday, starting at 9 a.m., and that's at 14065 Main Street. Also, God's Grace Community Church, Mount Hebron Missionary Baptist Church, and the Houston Food Bank on Saturday will distribute the bulk of the rest of their mass to our most at-risk neighbors. And also, I want to thank the Tuskegee, did I pronounce that right, University Alumni Association of Houston for their generous donation of 30,000 masks. And again, I want to emphasize these are masks that we're giving to our vulnerable population. Though we have already bringing in over 200,000, we are needing many, many more. And certainly want to thank the different church groups who are in the process of making a number of masks as well. The HERD Task Force also made its first distribution of 15,000 masks to Interfaith Ministries for inclusion with next week's meal delivery. So we're using different channels to get masks out. And so, Shannon, thank you so very much. As you can see, we are giving away the masks as fast as we can receive them. The City of Houston is handling distribution through our community partners, including the Houston Food Bank. Melody Pang is here. Thank you, Melody. Interfaith Ministries of Greater Houston, and our faith-based institutions. As much as possible, masks will be delivered to people's homes with meals, and when we replenish our supplies of masks and receive the cloth masks from the citywide Houston response effort, we have masks for the Houston Parks and Recreation Department to hand out to people in their cars with the meals being distributed at community centers. And I want to take this point to also acknowledge Susan Christian, who's Director of Special Events, who's also mainstay on the distribution effort of these masks. We are trying to minimize person-to-person contact as much as possible. Now let me talk about people with disabilities. On Tuesday, I announced that let me get my mask right. I will tell you, the mask that the grandma made works better than this commercial mask. Jeff, the mask that the grandma made is in my desk drawer. You know, this one ain't hold it up too well. On Tuesday, I announced that my Office for People with Disabilities would be launching a food access program with the goal of serving 500 households of Houstonians with disabilities. Clearly, there is a huge need in our city because the demand and request for assistance has simply been incredible. In less than 24 hours, we reached that capacity, and we had to temporarily close the sign-up form to evaluate our resources and strategize on how to best serve the maximum number of households. And thanks to the efforts of many, and with the assistance of the Houston Parks Adaptive Sports and Recreation staff at the West Gray Multi-Service Center, 627 Houstonians with disabilities were served today. Now I know that there is more need in our city. There are 215,000 plus Houstonians with disabilities in our city, so we have much more work to do, but we can do the work if we work together. I'm calling on our corporate partners to work with us by providing financial contributions to support city initiatives that lift vulnerable populations like the Mayor's Office with People with Disability Food Access Program. I do want to thank the Houston Food Bank for its efforts, and Melanie, I know a lot of contributions have come into the Houston Food Bank, but I'm hearing the supply is still being pressed to the limits. So I certainly want to encourage people to contribute to give to the Houston Food Bank. And then I'm going to ask for special contributions to our distribution center for the mayor's office with people with disability. I am also instructing Director Gabe Caceres to expand the mayor's office with people with disability food access program to serve an additional 500 households, bringing the maximum capacity of the program to 1,000 households per week for the next 2 weeks. This, we don't want to leave anyone behind, and in this case, those with disabilities are not having to come and get the supplies. With the support of Metro, we are taking the supplies directly to where they live. So let me pause right now, and Gabe, if you can come to speak to this program, we would appreciate it. Gabe Caceres.
Thank you, Mayor. Like the Mayor mentioned, the food access program for people with disabilities, we have seen a great response. We're asking for the community to be patient. We are working as quickly as possible to expand our resources. Like the Mayor said, we welcome contributions from the community so that we can continue to provide this service to our community. En español, estamos trabajando rápidamente. Hemos visto una necesidad muy grande en la comunidad. El alcalde nos ha pedido que expandamos nuestro programa y estamos trabajando lo más rápido posible para encontrar recursos para seguir proveyendo este servicio. So we are working as quickly as possible. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Gabe. I was just trying to listen to that translation, make sure you didn't leave out anything. But I think you got everything. The only thing that I would add is please do not give up on us. We certainly want to make sure that we meet the needs of everyone in our city. And then on last note, before I yield, although COVID-19 is an equal opportunity virus that can affect anyone, we know older adults and people with underlying medical conditions experience the worst outcomes, including death. And that's why it's important that we continue to focus on the most vulnerable in our city. The Houston Health Department is expanding its efforts to protect nursing homes, assisting living centers, and similar facilities against COVID-19. Health Department staff will conduct in-person site visits to visit more than 300 such facilities in Houston. About 20 Houston Fire Department staff has been training to expand that capacity. The visits will provide comprehensive education and testing assistance for residents and employees. And this includes an assessment tool based on CDC guidance, including resident screening and monitoring procedures, employee screening and monitoring procedures, personal protective equipment, infection control, and environmental cleaning. The visits will also ensure relationships are in place so facilities have the technical assistance needed when and if employees and residents need testing. This plan is just the latest step in the Houston Health Department's ongoing outreach to nursing homes. The department previously collaborated with the Southeast Regional Advisory Council, SEDRAC, on a webinar, completed telephone assessments with nursing homes, and provides additional guidance upon request. And additionally, when there is a case at a nursing home, the Houston Health Department provides guidance on communicating to residents, friends, families, and volunteers. To follow up on all of this and the medical report, let me first bring up Dr. Pearce.
Thank you, Mayor. And as the Mayor just mentioned about the health, the nursing homes, before I go to that, I want to point out, I see you've changed your mask to your, and on Wednesday, I told you I was going to make a mask. So that didn't happen. So my wife made this mask, and when she heard me, I think she started laughing. When she stopped laughing, she got to work. And she made this mask because she knows what mine would have looked like. Anyways, the masks are, you can make them. I probably could make one, but they are vitally important. And so Mask Up Houston is part of our way forward. Another part of our way forward is looking out for the most vulnerable, and we think immediately of those in nursing homes. But there's also the assisted care living centers, the senior living centers, and so on and so forth. And across our community, there's quite a number of them. It's too many for the health department to be able to shoulder that workload on our own. And so I want to publicly thank Chief Pena and Chief Wells and the members of the Houston Fire Department you got volunteer firefighters who volunteered for this. And I want to point out that they're firefighters of all ranks, including officers as well as firefighters. So a real thank you to the fire department for helping us out with that. And so we'll be going to the nursing homes and helping them with the new CDC guidance and making sure that they're protecting not only the residents but also the staff. And furthermore, we're going to be helping them with testing. We won't be doing the testing. We're going to facilitate them getting the testing done. And we do know that, like any other industry, there's going to be a breadth of ability, but some way or another, we're going to make sure that those individuals are protected. So I want to make sure that we knew about that. And another interesting, or not interesting, but important bit of news is that the Houston Blood Bank, the Blood Center rather, has asked that we let everyone know that they will begin taking volunteers who want to donate their plasma. So these are people who have recovered. And so in a minute here, I'll give you the information on how to get a hold of them. But this would be for folks who had a documented infection. So you'll need the documentation of your infection. And they will then work with you to make sure that you no longer have any infection and that you meet all the criteria for a regular blood donor so that we can start collecting plasma to start treating patients. So this is a huge and important development which will really help out the large number of folks who remain in intensive care units. And so today is Friday, and there's two ways to get in touch with the Gulf Coast Regional Blood Center. One is through their webpage at www.giveblood.org, and then the other is the phone number 713-791-6608. Now, nobody will answer that phone over the weekend, but beginning Monday morning, they will. But the webpage is going to be up and running all weekend long. So again, if you are somebody who has been infected, you have gotten past it, and you've got documentation of that, but the Blood Center wants you to reach out to them. And when you go through the procedure, it's very similar to giving blood. It takes less than an hour, and they will take blood out, take the part of that blood that they need, the plasma, and then give you your blood back. And so it's no more difficult than giving blood. And so it will make a huge difference in the lives of our current Houstonians that are critically ill in intensive care units. And I encourage everyone to take advantage of this. Again, www.giveblood.org or 713-791-6608. Mayor.
Chief Pena.
Thank you, Mayor. Good afternoon, everyone. I want to start my report by, again, stating that we are maintaining what we have as far as personnel in quarantine. We haven't seen a spike in firefighters having to be quarantined due to exposure, which is a positive thing. It speaks to the excellent work that our firefighters are doing in protecting themselves and protecting the community. We have 79 firefighters in quarantine right now. In the course of the operation, we've had 39 firefighters that have tested positive for COVID-19. We have 25 that have returned to work, and they're recovering at home, or the ones that are positive are recovering at home. As Dr. Peirce mentioned, we have firefighters that are participating in the nursing home project, and our scope and our mission is expanding a little bit. Staffing is adequate right now. We are maintaining every apparatus that we have available staffed up, which is a positive thing. But we are being stretched thin, but this project with the nursing homes is important. We, as the mayor mentioned, we have to protect those most vulnerable in our community, and we know that trying to get ahead of it and preventing the spread in these homes is going to go a long way. It's going to pay dividends. The other thing I want to mention is that we do have 7 personnel from the Houston Fire Department deployed to Polk County to assist with the tragedy that they have over there. Very proud of those individuals that are assisting out there. Please keep them in your thoughts and your prayers, and hope for a quick recovery in that region and a safe return for our firefighters home. In regards to the occupancy task force, in the last 24 hours, we've had 32 complaints that we've looked into. I'm happy to report that over 99% of the complaints that we've responded to in regards to the stay-home order, and there's been hundreds of those in the last 4 weeks, that the majority of those, if not all of them, have been resolved without citations, and assisting the community in understanding what the stay-home order is and achieving voluntary compliance. So we're very happy about that. Our goal, again, is to educate and inform, not necessarily to cite. And thankfully, we haven't had to do that in over 99% of the cases. So we hope that continues. Thank you. That's my report.
And Chief Unit, Office of Emergency Management.
Great. Thank you, Mayor, for your leadership and for bringing on new partners every day to bring in donations and masks and equipment. I'd also like to thank Director Buggs, Susan Christian, and Director Gabe for helping out and assisting with the vulnerable community. These are folks that don't have access to the masks and the food supply chain like most of us have. And this is just another way to keep our vulnerable community who are most at risk safe during this crisis. The Office of Emergency Management has been coordinating all the purchased PPE and the donated PPE and distributing that to the first responders and healthcare professionals and other essential city employees. It's a full-time job that we're working 16, 18 hours a day. Everybody's working real hard on that, so I want to thank the Office of Emergency Management and the Office of Business Opportunities for coordinating the donated supplies. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Shannon, you want to add on the health equity response team in terms of the masks?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, we are starting to hear back from many people who want to help the vulnerable populations by bringing masks to the city for the distribution. We are truly and sincerely grateful for that. The best way we can do this, though, is through our community partners. We want to keep the amount of person-to-person contact to a minimum. And the other thing we are asking everyone to do to help us make sure that we have enough supply to get to the most vulnerable is for you to look in your own homes and get bandanas and other cloth and make your own. Dr. Peirce shared that earlier about the simplicity of doing it. When we get that 1 million masks from all of the churches, 1,000 churches in the Houston area, we want to make sure we're able to distribute them to the people who are most in need. We all live here in Texas. We get bandanas for everything. So please go through what's in your home, find what you have, wash it up, and get to work on turning it into a bandana. It's as easy as using a mask. It's as easy as using a bandana and rubber bands to turn it into a mask that will keep you safe when you're out in public. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And at this point, we're taking the questions you may have.
From
Yes.
KHOU, on a show with our sister station in Dallas this morning, you talked about Houston's peak. Judge Hidalgo said an hour ago the curve has flattened. Have we hit our peak?
I talked to Dr. Peter Hortez this morning, and they're indicating that if we haven't hit it, we're certainly there. But it does appear that things are flattening out. And when we look at all of the numbers, all the numbers are favorable. But all of the numbers also, they carry a caveat. And that is assuming we continue with our social distancing and the proper hygiene, wearing our face covering, then it seems like the numbers are flattening out. So the numbers are favorable. As you know, for 4 consecutive days we went without any deaths. We're reporting 1 today. And so Houston's count is at 35. So Dr. Peirce, well, you know, the doctors are telling me we have flattened, but what they're saying, we're not going up, so to speak, but we're flattening out. But I'll let Dr. Peirce further elaborate.
Yeah, the mayor is exactly right. So we look at the data from a number of different angles. We talk about the case count that we report to you every day. We've talked a number of times about how that can be unreliable. We've also been in contact, and in fact, in the conference call this morning with members from the Texas Medical Center. And then in my other role with the Southeast Texas Regional Advisory Council, we look at similar data from a different angle. So the Texas Medical Center looks at for those member institution systems, so the Memorial Hermann system, the St. Luke system, the Methodist and Harris Health systems. SETRAC looks at it for all hospitals by county and across the 25-county region. And what both of those views of the hospital data is suggesting is that the in-hospital population of patients who are diagnosed with COVID disease seems to have flattened off. And it seems to have flattened off where, depending on exactly where you look, 1, maybe 2 weeks now. What to keep in mind, however, is that as patients recover and are discharged either from the ICU or from the hospital, in order for that number to remain, that means somebody else got admitted. So we've not, if you think about peak as going up and then coming down, we're not coming down yet. We've plateaued, which means that all of the things that the Houstonians are doing, face coverings, hand washing, small groups, all of the things that we're doing means that we are right now at the same pace as the power of this virus. So we're not on the downside yet. Hopefully we'll get there. But what everyone is doing, congratulations. Keep doing it. Don't take your foot off the brake. It's working.
One more, Mayor, from KHOU. Have you put a number on the upcoming city budget deficit amount?
That budget deficit will be anywhere between $170 to $200 million in terms of the deficit that we're trying to close. It will be the worst budget deficit that the city has faced. Now, 2016, I said in 2016 it was the worst, and that's because we were dealing with pensions, the rising cost of pension. And in 2016, that was the worst deficit shortfall the city has ever faced in its history. This one will be worse than 2016. So it will be the worst budget deficit in the city of Houston. The sales tax reduction for us in terms of revenue will be a little over $100 million alone. And then when you take into account municipal courts, those fees, parking fees, all are down. So when you factor all of that in without any flexibility in federal funding to fill the gap, it does mean, for example, that police cadet classes, all 5, will be deferred. It does mean that thousands of employees will have to be furloughed. It does mean that there will be additional deferments within this budget. There's just no way to otherwise to make it balance.
And Mayor, just to follow up on that,
Sure.
have you gotten any word from your congressional delegation, or is there any hope to switch things around? And
We were on a conference call, other big city mayors were on a conference call at 1 o'clock today with Senator Cornyn, and he acknowledged that the sales tax reductions were directly related to COVID-19. And in his view, the use of federal dollars to fill that gap would be an understandable use. However, the Secretary of Treasury and Congress has yet to provide that flexibility. So as of today, we cannot use even the dollars that have been awarded to municipalities to fill the deficit. It's our hope that Congress is understanding our situation, and it's not just Houston; it's across the board in almost every city throughout the United States. You know, Congress has provided additional dollars to replace revenue lost by companies in the private sector and others. Well, the city of Houston, other municipalities is no exception. We have lost revenue, but we have yet to receive that flexibility. And as people think about reopening the economy, bear in mind the Houston, the governmental entity represents the infrastructure behind these businesses opening up. And quite frankly, if we are having to defer police cadet classes, that goes directly to public safety. Same thing with respect to our firefighters, you know, directly to public safety. Solid waste, that goes directly to your health. Sanitation, critically important. In terms of permitting, you know, that goes directly to providing permits in a timely fashion to businesses who want to engage in residential or commercial construction. So the reality for us, but we do have to balance the budget. And unlike the federal government, we cannot engage in deficit financing. We must balance. We cannot borrow.
on the issue of testing, Mayor,
Yes.
the state seems to have deployed some pop-up testing facilities in the outlying suburbs today and I guess this weekend. But it's apparently Texas is still 49th in testing, and we're already talking about opening back up. I mean, retail to go started today. Monday, the governor's supposed to have a big announcement. Given the fact that we're still almost last in testing, do you feel like? That's
my concern. My concern is that the testing becomes our eyes to spot where this virus is. And even though we have plateaued, that doesn't mean the virus is not prevalent in our community. The virus is still here. And the virus is still not under control. Okay? So you can open up, but it's like you're flying, but you're flying, but you're flying blindly. And you're hoping and praying that the virus is not prevalent. And so the testing is what determines who has it, where it is, and how pervasive it is in our community. Quite frankly, we ought to be testing in the city of Houston anywhere between 3,000 to 5,000 a day. Right now, in terms of the public facilities, it's 1,000 maximum, and we're tapping that out at about 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, when we should be going to about 7 p.m. And then I think the ultimate test is that it's 1 case per 1 million. I believe it's what we're seeking to get, or less, and we're not there yet. So the numbers are favorable, but in the absence of robust, widespread testing, we really are taking on a lot of risk. I know people want to get back, and I want to get back too. And we had a visit with some of the strike force members on the governor's task force this morning. So we want to get back to business as well. But I think we all recognize that it needs to be in stages, and that the testing is a precursor, really, to really getting back and opening things up.
I have two more from Houston Public Media. Have there been any discussions between the city and the county to extend the stay-at-home order? And what can the city do about rent assistance when the moratorium lifts? Can you spend any of the $400 million in stimulus money to help prevent homelessness?
Well, on homelessness, the answer is yes. And we're already doing some things. We have already taken steps to thin out the population of those who are homeless within our shelters. We've already taken those initiatives. We are looking at ways of providing rental assistance and seeing where we can utilize some of the federal dollars that we've received. So we're walking through those steps as we speak. I do hope, for example, that the Texas Supreme Court will continue to extend its moratorium or halt on evictions through the end of May. Because it's not so much April that's still going to affect renters, it's the month of May. So my hope is that the Texas Supreme Court will extend its halt on evictions until the end of May. And then the first question dealt with...
Have you talked to the county about extending the stay-at-home order?
And that pretty much is now in the hands of the governor. The governor is now deciding when things are going to open up, and he's the governor, and his executive orders will trump, let me put it that way, will trump local government's orders. And so he's already, as of this week, certain things opening up, curbside for retail, that's taking place today. And he's already indicated that on Monday he'll make some additional announcements. And so his order will supersede the orders of local government. So my only hope is that whatever those orders will be, that we will be very careful and measured such that we don't cause the situation to resurge. Let's put it that way.
Mayor, you talked about 3,000 to 5,000 tests a day as a number that you'd feel comfortable with. Moving forward, what is the city's plan? What steps are in place to try to get to that number a day?
And then let me make a few comments, and I'll yield to Dr. Peirce. To me, it's going to require a public-private collaborative approach. Okay, we certainly we need more capacity for our public sites, and that's hoping that FEMA and others will provide us with the capacity, not just the test kit, but all of the other elements, the supplies that go along with it, the media, the swabs, the nasal swabs, all of the other elements that go along with PPEs. And then in addition, I would love to see more mobile units to be able, for people who are transportation challenged, who can't get to Del Mar or Butler Stadium, that we can have these mobile units that can go closer to where their neighborhoods are. We are looking at partnering with an entity like UMMC that has already set up testing sites in different locations. The last one was Cullen Middle School. And we're looking at standing up a testing site right now, for example, in East Houston, in the East End, this coming week. And then at the same time, we are encouraging employers, businesses, corporations, who can assume the cost and test their own employees to do that. Was it last week or this week? It was Tashir Badar with the CEO of ZT Corporation, who is stepping up, and he's testing all 15 of his own employees and assuming the cost. If other companies will do the same, then we could exponentially increase the amount of testing when you combine the public sector with the private sector, and that would give people a great more confidence that who they're working with, or if they're going out and going to business with other individuals, will give people a greater confidence. I would add that in the absence of additional widespread testing, You can say you're opening things up, but I think people are going to be have the last say. And if they don't feel confident, if they don't feel safe, I don't think you're going to see people at the very beginning moving out too quickly, too soon. Dr. Pearce?
Yeah, so the health department is working with the number. I don't want to get too far ahead of an announcement we were hoping we were going to make next week, but we're working with some of the federally qualified health centers and some others, and you mentioned UMMC. We're partnering with them in order to expand the testing, but not only just to expand the testing, but to do it in a very strategic way. So we're already working. We're gathering the data we have, and recognize I've sort of been a little bit critical of our testing data because it comes in slow and some other issues with it. But even so, we're using some mathematical models to correct for those shortcomings so that when we do move forward with testing, we're doing it in neighborhoods that are already under-tested, underrepresented in the testing, and also ones where we have reason to believe that there may be higher rates based on some of the intelligence that we already have. So we don't have enough testing capacity to do every neighborhood to the ability that we would like. So we have to be smart about it, and that's what we're doing. We're working on that strategy now, and hopefully you'll be able to make an announcement with more specifics next week.
And bear in mind, it's not just the diagnostic testing, but it's also the contact tracing. All of that becomes critically important. I see Chief Acevedo has come. I think he was probably out arresting, tackling, chasing somebody. So, Chief, you know. Undercover will work. Anything to report today?
Thank you, Mayor. And I'm happy to report that Major City Chiefs had their conference call today talking about the funding issue. And every single big city in America needs the same thing that we need here, and that's for the Congress and the President and the Treasury, the Secretary of Treasury, to allow us to use the funding to deal with the impact on society of this virus. This virus is not just a medical health, public health issue. It's a public health issue. It's a public safety issue. And we got the letter out to all the leadership in Congress today from all the chiefs, and we're sending it to the President today as well. And thank you for supporting those efforts, Mayor. Our update today, we're down to 35 classified members that are with the department that are in quarantine, 26 civilians. We have 42 positives out of in our department. 40 are sworn and 2 civilians. We have had 27 folks out of those 42 positives that are back to work after going through COVID-19, 26 sworn and 1 civilian. Detective Cervantes still remains in the hospital. He's not improving greatly, but he's stable. And the prayers continue to work from the perspective of the family and everyone else. And the 2 areas, again, that continue to remain. Our calls for service are down, Mayor, about 3% since COVID. But our 2 crimes that continue to be a problem is, again, domestic violence, burglary of habitats, and the assaults that are related to the domestic violence. One of the reasons I wasn't here right on time, Mayor, and I apologize, was because of the Major State Chiefs meeting, conference call, and we had an all-command staff call talking about just the last 48 hours have been pretty violent in our city. We've had 4 homicides in the last 24 hours, 4 additional shootings and a stabbing. In the last 48 hours, we've had 8 homicides, 9 additional shootings and a stabbing. Most of those are related to drugs and gang activity. But unfortunately, we know that too often innocent people get caught in the crossfire. So we had on all decks meeting with our command staff, and you're going to be seeing some moving resources and some additional efforts. The funding you provided earlier this year, we're going to start expending. Chief Finner has authorized some deployments that will be specially designed to deal with this. But to the public, we want to remind folks that the department is operational. But at the end of the day, I've heard this, my mayor say it time and again, it takes a village. It takes everyone coming together. Remember, the police department is here for you. If you see something, if you know something, please come forward. En español, acuérdese que en las últimas 48 horas ha visto mucha violencia en nuestra comunidad. Necesitamos que la comunidad no tenga temor, que acuérdese que el departamento de la policía está aquí para ustedes. Por favor, llamen. Estamos funcionando y estamos listos para mantener la seguridad pública. And the last thing I want to say, I got a mask today from my friend Lucho. Thank God he made one big enough for my big noggin. I appreciate it, Lucho. And the last thing, because everybody's asking, I want to thank you, Mayor, for your leadership on the mask issue. We are about relational policing in the Houston Police Department. We know that the #1 force multiplier that we have to keep this city safe is the consent and the cooperation of the people. And I want to reassure folks that with the complete support and leadership of Mayor Turner, we are not going to be out looking to cite people and taking you down and come out with the SWAT team. We're going to be using a lot of honey. Having said that, if you're up to no good, that's a different story, because we are, for responsible adults that are out there, just remember, the mayor's going to provide us with some masks. We're going to give them to our officers. Please know that we believe in sugar and honey and the vinegar only for the bad actors that are out there trying to create other problems that have nothing to do with masks. So with that, thank you, Mayor, for your leadership, and that's my report.
And I do want to remind everyone that the city of Houston is really the only city in the state of Texas that's been operating under a revenue cap. So we're operating under revenue cap, and now we're facing the shortage and primarily in sales tax, and we need those dollars for our first responders, for public safety. It's one thing to have a health care crisis. It's another thing to have public concerns and public issues. And so the flexibility in funding is critical, especially when we're having to deal with all of these events. And let me just say, in the city of Houston, going back to 2016 with the Tax Day flood, to Harvey in 2017, to Tropical Storm Imelda in 2019, to this coronavirus in 2020, we have had to function with all of those crises while we have been under a revenue cap. I want people to think about that. Under revenue cap. And now people expect us to continue to function with a limited revenue and deal with the coronavirus and everything else. And then we have public safety concerns and a budgetary shortfall, which is the worst in the city's history. So these are things that we have to address. Lastly, there are 47 municipal employees who have tested positive up to this point, 47 municipal employees. Now, having said all of that, let me try to end on a very good note, positive note. This is Friday, and with the exception of the health department, police, and fire, everyone else, you enjoy your weekend, you know. All right, thank you all.
All right, Mayor Turner there wrapping up his daily briefing with some encouraging news and some not so encouraging news. For the first time in 5 days, announcing a death from COVID in the city. And this is significant. This was a man in his 70s, the first to die in the city with no underlying health conditions. That has not happened before, but still, we heard from Dr. Pers today, despite the 74 new positive cases you see there, that he says we have plateaued. So we're not going up anymore, but we're not coming down yet. So the cases, the number of cases and people in the hospital they're seeing, that has plateaued. And that is, if it stays that way, certainly some good news. The other discouraging news from the mayor today had to do with the city budget, just the lost revenue from the shutdown, the city facing its worst budget deficit in history, $170 to $200 million. It will end up being worse than 2016, the year of Hurricane Harvey. The mayor saying that will result in thousands of layoffs, furloughs in the city to municipal employees, and they don't know how at this point they're going to dig out of that, but certainly it will mean significant cuts unless, as they want to happen, the federal government comes through with money for cities to help get through this pandemic. We'll see where that goes. All right, the 411's coming up here in just about 7 minutes. As always, you can stay up to date with the KHOU mobile app. We'll get you back to the last few minutes of Ellen, and we'll see